On December 10th, 2024, a woman named Jennifer Sheffield posted this TikTok.
So, about to be a newly single mom, and I am in the middle of a divorce. My husband is being incredible though, like really and truly, like we're working together, everything's great, we're splitting everything down the middle, like, you know, everything is good. It is a very civil divorce with our daughter in mind, and I really appreciate that. However, you know, I'm gonna be a mom, single income right now, and he will be helping with her, he will be supporting her, you know, so essentially, like, I'm really thankful for that, and that I will not have to worry so much about supporting her. However, I will be on a very limited income, with buying a new house and, you know, paying a mortgage and all that stuff. So, I've never done this before. I've never been on my own before. So if you have any tips, saving money, making money, anything like that, like, I would really appreciate it. Like, you know, coffee at home, you know, I take caffeine pills, I do my own hair, nails, everything. Like, I do all that. So yeah, if you just have any tips, like, I would really appreciate it, because, like, I'm a little scared right now.
It ended up being the last TikTok video she'd ever post. Hey guys, before we get started, I'm Hannah Cox with Base Politics. Welcome to my channel where I bring you my politically homeless takes on politics and culture. Before we jump in today, make sure you like this video, subscribe to my channel if you have not already, and of course, ring that notification bell so you never miss one of my episodes. So by the time Jennifer's video began going viral on TikTok, news of her demise had already reached the masses, me included, giving its message a very eerie and foreboding context. On December 28th, just a couple of weeks after Jennifer made that video, she was found alongside her estranged husband, Brandon, by police in Mississippi in what has now been labeled a Jennifer, who was 10 years younger than Brandon, leaves behind 2 daughters, according to her obituary, and she was reportedly enrolled in school to become a doctor. Now, I've seen a lot of posts circulating online that she was quite young in her teens when she had her first daughter with Brandon, indicating that he was much older and groomed her. I have not been able to verify that on my own yet, so I tried to be meticulously fact-checked as best I can, but this is a developing case, so information is still forthcoming. Either way, there was a pretty decent age gap between them, and it does seem that clearly there were problems behind the scenes in their marriage. What is worth noting, and perhaps makes this even scarier, is that the friends who have come forth so far have said that there had been no signs, as far as they knew, of violence before this happened in their marriage. And clearly, based on the TikTok video that she made shortly before this happened, she seemed to think that they were on good terms, that their divorce was going to be amicable, that they were going to be co-parenting, that they had a healthy situation worked out. Now, I have unfortunately lost a friend in very similar circumstances to this, who had been abused by her husband prior to her death. Unlike this circumstance, that was known to literally everybody around my friend before her death. But what I will say is that many people are not always privy. A lot of people are very private about these things when they happen. And oftentimes women have been conditioned to try to keep the peace, to try to keep up appearances, and even are afraid of their partners. And so will try to present them in a good light to prevent incurring more of their wrath. So I don't know where Jennifer was coming from when she made this TikTok video, if she was genuine and really truly believed that that was the state of her marriage and impending divorce, or if she was doing it to try to hopefully make sure that things went the way she needed them to go. I find it a bit hard to believe that someone could just escalate overnight into doing something so heinous and grotesque, but we do see crimes of passion that have happened in the past where somebody doesn't have a background of violence. So I can't really answer or speak to any of that as of right now. What I can speak to is the equally grotesque reaction to this case by a lot of men online. Obviously, the story is haunting and disturbing and just tragic all around. You have this promising young woman who lost her life. You have 2 daughters who have now been orphaned thanks to their loser father. It's just trauma and injustice every single way you look at it. But really, just when you think it can't get even worse, just when you think this is like the bottoming out of humanity, it does. Online men take it upon themselves to come in and demonstrate firsthand why so many women choose the bear over a man when posed with a question, publicly posting some of the most unhinged justifications for this man's actions you can imagine. Jeff Younger took to Twitter to quote tweet someone who had posted about the case and said, well, she was taking his kids, as if that in any way justifies his actions. First and foremost, it does not seem that she was taking his kids. According to her in her own video, they were going to be sharing their kids. They are equally their kids. But secondarily, even if she had been, I would say that this was an example of a time that a man should have his kids taken, because this man is a murderer. He clearly was emotionally and mentally unstable. He clearly was physically violent and scary and a threat. So his kids should have been taken away from him. And this guy, Jeff Younger, who I don't know who he is, apparently he lost his kids recently too, and he's really upset about it, which, like, not surprised after observing his Twitter feed for a little bit. But someone said, people really on here trying to justify this. He said, if you take a man's kids, with a shrug emoji. Somebody getting divorced and having to share custody of their kids does not justify murder. I don't know why I have to say that. Like, I don't know what stage of evolution this guy is at, but it's not the same one I'm in. Another person responded to him and said, yes, she definitely wasn't trying to protect them from the kind of person who violently flies off the handle when dealing with a life crisis. And he said, you're engaging in the slave master fallacy like most feminists. Yes, this is feminist problem. Feminists who made it possible for women to escape abusive men and to hopefully escape abusive marriages with their lives intact are responsible for this situation, not the violent kinds of men who have been men throughout history when they don't get their way and cannot control them any longer. I am not exaggerating when I say I could show you literally hundreds and hundreds of posts of men making this argument in the comment section online in response to this case. And it is just mind-blowing. It really, really is. Like, something is very broken within these people. Also, I saw a lot of men saying that this is indicative of why no-fault divorce should be abolished. They say this is wrong on so many levels. This got repeated over and over. Like, this wouldn't have happened if no-fault divorce weren't a thing. Yeah, it would have happened, because if you didn't have no-fault divorce, she would have had to have proven that this man was violent and a threat to her before, it seems, as best we know, he had actually done anything physical to her yet. Although abuse often escalates and can take many forms, and physical abuse is usually the byproduct of years and years of other kinds of abuse, like emotional abuse and mental abuse and financial abuse. But she would have had to have proven that just to have the chance to escape him and get her kids out of there if no-fault divorce were not on the table. And yet the results probably would have been the same, because a man that is capable of doing this kind of thing is going to do it no matter what. They are a ticking time bomb. I just cannot fathom looking at this case and be like, well, if she had just not tried to leave him, none of this would have happened. No, if he hadn't been a psychopath, selfish asshole, none of this would have happened. Another person on Twitter said, men expect women to sign up for marriage, no hesitation, while openly expressing that leaving a marriage is understandable grounds for your husband murdering you. There were also men with a absolute straight face who were responding to this story and saying that more women need to take accountability for their actions, okay? Like, more women, meaning Jennifer, need to take accountability for their actions, okay? So this dead woman needs to take accountability for the fact that she was trying to escape a marriage of which you know nothing about. You're just a random internet person, and you think she needs to take accountability for the fact that that ended up with her husband murdered? Like, what are you talking about? He needs to take accountability. Men like this need to take accountability. This person on Twitter said, you're at fault if your husband murders you is probably one of the most unhinged things I've read in a while. Also, women not taking accountability in reply to a man murdering his wife. Incredibly wildly ironic. Some of you really need to touch grass. This guy, Brandon Johnson, was one of those wacko losers. He said, women will not accept accountability. Women also initiate 75% of divorces. Are there men who are abusive and cheat on their wives? Certainly, and I have no sympathy for them, but the women who initiate a divorce because they are unhappy is a cop-out and probably are listening to feminist. I'm sure he was going to say feminist. Actually, being unhappy is a perfectly justifiable reason for getting divorced, because you know what? It's none of your business why people want to get divorced. You miserable Karen, go get a life. Okay? I personally don't believe in divorce as a religious person. I take my vows of marriage very, very seriously, and I would only justify leaving my marriage if there were cheating or abuse. But that being said, the state, the government, has no business telling people under what conditions they have to stay married. That is a religious matter, not a political one. And I don't think the government should have ever gotten involved in marriage in the first place, but it's a cop out argument now because it is. And that's not changing anytime soon. So if somebody wants to get out of a marriage because they're unhappy, that's fine. And if you don't want to incur that risk, don't get married or get a prenup, or even better, get married, be a good husband, and don't be the kind of husband a wife wants to leave. Don't be a husband that makes his wife unhappy. Try that. Like, these were really the bottom dwellers of humanity. The red pill manosphere is so broken. These people are really, really down bad. And I don't know. I believe in redemption as a Christian, but like at this point, I don't know what it's going to take to pull some of these guys off the edge. Like, they really do have severe mental problems. Here's another guy. We don't know the backstory here. Was she a walkaway wife? Was there adultery or abuse? Husband suicides have increased markedly since the introduction of no fault divorce, to my knowledge. I don't really know that that's backed up by data. We're just going off his word here. But again, a man doing something violent, whether it be to himself or others, the blame for that falls back on that man. Okay? He's a grown up. Grown ups are supposed to be able to control their emotions. And this is why I am never, ever going to sit here and have this conversation that like women are the more emotional sex. No, they're not. In fact, every bit of data I've seen backs up the fact that women, even when they have someone who's being rude to them, even when they have somebody who's disrespecting them, maintain decorum and still treat the other person with respect. Women, as a whole, do not fly off and murder husbands when they are cheated on, which men are statistically more likely to do, when they are left when they are sick, which again, men are statistically much more likely to do, much more likely to leave their dying wives and move on if their woman has a terminal diagnosis. We don't see women committing this kind of violence when men end up divorcing them for a younger woman and get 50% of the custody. You just don't see it. I mean, it's an outlier event. You probably know the names of the women who do those kinds of things because it is so out of left field for a woman to respond in that way. Men are the ones who cannot control their emotions. Men are the ones who need to learn to grow up, and they need to get a hold of themselves. It doesn't matter if she cheated or is walking away. She has free will. She has the right to do that. That makes her a bad person. Absolutely. And I think that you should fight every bit in the courts to make sure you don't have to pay her any money for that. Make sure that you keep 50% of the custody. Like, that's fine, but you don't have the right to kill someone because they don't want to be with you. And guys, it just goes on and on, like literally page after page after page like this. And like, their fantasies about what women are thinking when they go through a divorce, like what their motivations are, what their life is going to look like. You just know these men have never talked to women, at least not in the past like 10 years or so. They're just the types that like sit in their online world in their basements consuming word porn meant to get rage bait out of men. They're just clicking these things that are totally just meant to keep them in a state of enragement so that they'll interact, making the people who post this crap rich and making them angrier and more detached from reality by the day. Like, look at these guys. A woman's transition into becoming a cat mom and box wine commissioner was stopped way too short. She hardly knew the benefits of being Tyrone's side piece. If she was on caffeine pills, like I think I heard her say, then she was already making reckless decisions. Yes, caffeine has been known to drive people to madness. Truly, a man can only be pushed so far. I'm not dismissing what the man did, but we live in a culture where men are shown so little respect. It sounds like you are dismissing what the man did. Another guy, Jason Hughes, that's not what he thought. I guarantee he didn't. I bet he was thinking she's taking my kid, going to have me pay thousands of dollars because she lied to him and wanted to marry him. Then her feelings changed and she chose this, make divorce illegal again. I'm pretty sure by her video, she said she's going to be supporting herself. Also, again, she was in school to become a doctor. So I don't think she was looking to live off this man. He was going to be financially taking care of the child that he helped create, for which she said she was grateful. But like, this fantasy where the woman's like, I'm just going to go have a great time and get divorced and blow up my family because I'm just a little bored and it's going to be so fun. I'm going to live off my husband and like just parade around. Like, this is not reality. The last like problematic box of responses that I saw to this post were people with this talking point. This guy, Andy Alford, said, this kind of thing, divorce, not murder, is one of the chief reasons that young men are more and more reluctant to get married. And some woman responded to him and said, well, maybe that's best if they can't not kill someone in revenge and rage. Not only is that spot on, these kinds of men should not be getting married or procreating, and women need to make sure that they are sussing these kinds of men out and staying far, far, far clear of them. But it's an even more ridiculous thing for guys to threaten because it's not men who are choosing to be single, it's women. Women are the ones who control access to relationships. Women are the ones who are truly choosing to be single at a growing rate. And it's the men who are left without options that are raging about this online, who are crying about their male loneliness epidemic, who are complaining about the birth rate collapse. It's not the men who are pulling out of marriage. And I don't know why they think they're going to gaslight women in society into thinking that it is. This post made me holler. This guy said, most men aren't single because there's something wrong with them that they can fix. I disagree. They're single because women don't want relationships with men. Telling these men to improve might help them displace another man in the running, but it doesn't increase men's overall odds. That doesn't make any sense. If more men improve, then more women would want to date them, and it would help all the men who improved obtain women. But I don't expect these guys to be great at reasoning skills. The funniest part, though, is still to come. He says, the elephant in the room is that less women want relationships with men than men want relationships with women, and that number is going down for some mysterious reason. For some mysterious reason? For some mysterious reason. You have men justifying murdering your wife when she leaves, and you can't figure out why more and more women are just simply opting out of getting married and hanging out with men at all. And what's even crazier is not just the reactions to this post in this case, which are grotesque, but it's just how common these things happen. Okay, here's another story that got a little bit less attention, but this is a video showing a man proposing to his girlfriend, and the caption says, man arrested and charged for killing fiance the same night he proposed to her. Someone quote tweeted it because the comments in response to this were also atrocious and said the amount of men in the reply saying she must have cheated disgusts me. It could have been something as simple as her publicly saying yes and privately telling him no to save him embarrassment. We don't know. The point is he had no right to take her life regardless of what she did. The fact that you have so many men who see a case like this and the first response is like, well, the woman must have done something, must have been the woman's fault, instead of being like, something is deeply wrong with these very broken, very volatile men, it's just terrifying. I mean, there's no other way to put it. It makes me so thankful for my husband every day, all day today. While I've been writing this, I've been like, honey, I love you so much. I'm so thankful for you. Please never leave my side. Don't drive anywhere. Stay safe. Please stay safe. Like, good Lord. This is so bleak for society that this is where the state of so many men are. And I don't want to hear people in my comments. I say this every time I talk about men's issues. I like men. I have so many amazing men in my family and who have surrounded me throughout my life, so many amazing male friends, and now I have an amazing husband that honestly, were it not for the online apparatus, I would be so happy. I would be so outside the loop. This would be so removed from my sphere of knowledge, except for the fact that my one friend experienced domestic violence and was by her husband. Like, that is the only penetration I have had by these kinds of men into my actual real world. But the fact that this has become so prevalent online and the fact that so few men are speaking out against it is such a huge problem. I've seen women calling this out all day yesterday, all day today, till we're blue in the face, pointing out the problems with this, pushing back on the arguments. I can count on one hand the number of men I have seen calling these losers out. And not only is this mentality not an outlier online, in the real world, it's not an outlier either. I've just been very blessed and privileged to be pretty much excluded from these spheres where this is happening. But studies show that between 20 to 30% of divorces involve abuse as a significant factor. Now, abuse can include physical violence. It can also be emotional abuse or controlling behaviors or financial abuse or mental abuse, but abuse is a significant driver in divorce. So not only is abuse a driving factor in divorce rates, it's also true that on average, 3 women per day are killed by an intimate partner, according to the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence. And in 2020, approximately 47% of female homicide victims were killed by a current or former romantic partner, per FBI data. And we know that women are at the highest risk when leaving their partners. Like, this is a calculation women have to think about when they are dating and considering marriage, is, does this man have the propensity to kill one day? And unfortunately, a lot of women are not educated on those signs. Of course, most women know if a man hits you or is physical with you, like that's a bad sign, but they don't often know these signs of abuse that can lead up to that. On top of that, the red pill talking points around divorce are just dead wrong. Like these guys are dolts who do not know how to read data and who've been denounced by every dietitian who ever encounters their work. Like they are laughably bad at just understanding reality around them. What's actually true about divorce is women are more likely to file, yes, which tracks because women are more likely to take action in their lives on a myriad of fronts these days. But just because they are more likely to do the paperwork doesn't mean that they are the ones that cause the marriage to fail. We know that statistically, men are more likely to cheat, men are more likely to be abusive, and men are more likely to just be deadbeats in the marriage. I've talked about this over and over and over, but the number of men who are married, who have kids, who are physically present, but who are totally checked out, that do not help with the child rearing, that do not help around the house, that don't help run errands or even manage just the general workload of having a house, of having a family, is extreme. So I am personally not very convinced that there are a lot of women out there who are just like, YOLO, let's break up the marriage for fun. No, they have gotten to a point in the marriage where being single and being a single mom feels easier than staying. What's also true is that in divorces, women rarely get alimony, which is like a favorite talking point of these red pill losers who probably don't even make enough money to be considered for alimony. On top of that, the average child support payment is under $1,000 a month. And that's even lower down south where I live. Okay. It's actually swayed pretty high by like the rich northeastern states. But down here in the South, it's typically under $500 a month. So no woman is filing for divorce, getting custody of her kids, and getting rich off the child support either. And additionally, when they get divorced and they have kids, women do typically get stuck providing primary care for their kids because fathers don't even ask for custody the majority of the time. That's right. All of their whining and crying about like, they took my kids, she took my kids. Most of the time, fathers don't even petition the court and ask for their kids. I don't think most women are trying to have their kids full time. That's a lot of work, not to mention a lot of childcare expenses that you have to pay for. Childcare prices that a mere $500 to $1,000 a month are not covering. So because of these factors, and because so many women do take time away from the workforce to care for younger kids while they're married, it actually turns out that women are much more likely to end up in poverty post-divorce, not men. So the fact that they continue to pursue it should tell you a lot about what's going on in these marriages. What's also true is that study after study continues to show it's men who benefit the most from marriage and families, not women. So with all that in mind, these morons need to take a seat and ask themselves why they think women will continue to sign up for all of these risks if they have to go to court and prove their husbands harmed them just to escape bad marriages. I don't think a lot of these men are lonely enough yet, but boy, are they about to be. Women are not putting up with this crud anymore, and that birth rate decline is just going to keep flatlining until the men improve. You guys, I've said it before and I'm going to keep saying it. The good men in this country have got to wake up and reckon with what's going on with the younger male generations. They are not all right. They have been failed by deadbeat dads. They have been coddled by their boy moms. They're soft, they're weak, and they are in the process of creating very hard times if this isn't stopped. All right, guys, I hope you liked this episode. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to my channel if you've not already, and if you want even more content, you can follow me on Instagram, Twitter, or TikTok.